Hello, OT friends, and welcome to the Uncommon OT series. I'm Patricia Modis, and I'm your host, a Filipino-American, native New Yorker, currently based in Los Angeles, bulldog mama, and an uncommon occupational therapist myself for the past 22 years. On this podcast, you will hear me proudly feature the unique careers of occupational therapy practitioners working in non-traditional and role-emerging practice areas, settings where OT is uncommon. I invite you to receive a dose of OT inspiration, to learn, to think outside of the box, and to be energized and motivated to follow in these unconventional paths. Happy listening! Before we begin this episode, I want to extend a special thanks to Picmonic, our sponsor. If you are an OT or OTA student looking for an excellent learning resource and study aid, Picmonic might be for you. Whether you're studying for your classes or getting ready for the NBCOT exam, it is a visual mnemonic learning tool that has been research proven to increase retention and help students ace their exams. It uses audio-visual learning and intelligence-based repetition algorithms to help with long-term retention while studying. If you're interested in trying it for yourself, sign up today using the link in the show notes or using the code TRANSITIONSOT to score a discount of 20% off your Picmonic membership. Welcome back, OT friends. Today, I'm excited to introduce you to our guest of honor, Holly Ross. Holly is an occupational therapist who specializes in aquatic therapy. Welcome to the podcast, Holly.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
I am super excited too to delve into your expertise. Would you mind kicking us off by telling us a little bit about yourself and maybe some of your favorite occupations?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm 29. I live in the state of Colorado, but originally hail from Michigan. My university is Eastern Michigan University, and I graduated in 2018 and then moved out here at the end of that year to start working kind of in the home health sector for pediatrics. After a couple years, fast forward to February 20th of 2020, I opened my practice right before COVID and kind of ran with that. And then I reopened an aquatic sector in 2021, and I've kind of been doing that in a mix of outpatient peds ever since, I still have a little bit of home health on the side here and there. Some of my favorite occupations, which would be no surprise, include swimming. I do quite a bit of laps throughout the week, and this year I'm trying to get to 52 miles, so basically a mile a week. So I'm hoping I'm close. I'm trying to track it on my Instagram stories. I take a picture and then I add them all up. So I'm hoping I meet my goal this year. I also love hiking and I love napping too. I sneak it in there for like side things. And then I also want to add to that, I really do love being an OT, and I spend a lot of time working, but it doesn't feel like work because I really love what I do. So it's only like occasionally if people are having bad days or someone's just super upset during session and I have like 3 of those in a row, then I'm kind of emotionally exhausted, but most of the time I'm having a really great time and not very tired.
Oh, I love it. And, as I'm hearing you say that, I'm also seeing you with a big smile on your face. So I totally believe that, your passion is there for the work that you're doing. I asked you to be on the podcast because I was very curious about your specialty. So I'm hoping by the end of this episode, our listeners will learn a thing or two about how to become an occupational therapist like yourself.
Great. We need more of us. So
what inspired you to do this type of OT?
So kind of not too long into the story forever and ever, but my first job as a teenager when I was 15 was a lifeguard. And then quickly I realized I could get paid a few more bucks per hour if I was teaching swimming. So I said, you know what? I won't be on the stand anymore. Can I teach so I can be money? Because what motivates a 15-year-old/16-year-old more than like getting more money on the side for friends? Mm-hmm. So I started teaching swimming, and I guess I must be really good at it. So I'm still, and my husband will also tell people, not always great about recognizing maybe how good I am at it, but I guess I turned out to be very good because at the rec center I was working at, I filled up only with clients that had disabilities. And I wasn't an OT. I was just a high schooler. And so I guess I just had a knack with working with different groups of people. So then it ended up being so full that the director at the rec center just said, you know what, you can take these people privately if you want, because they won't sign up with any other instructor. So I kind of did like some cash lessons throughout college and just always kept my water safety instructor license through Red Cross, and always was just kind of teaching on and off to make some side money. And then when I became an OT and after I went to school, I said, you know what, like no more aqua. I've been doing this since I was 15. It's time to like be an OT. Well, after I started in home health and then I did my practice, and then I've always had my teaching license. I've never let it lapse. And my teaching license came in at 18. That's when you're allowed to get legally certified through Red Cross. So my email signature attached to like my OT credentials. And what ended up happening was I had families Googling what that credential meant. And so then they kept emailing me, asking me about, do you teach water safety still? Do you teach any more children with disabilities? And I was like, I only pick up like one every so many like years so I can keep my teaching license. And so finally I just had too many people asking. So I decided to just open it. So in 2021, I reopened the aquatic sector post-COVID. And basically I started off just doing, water safety for those with disabilities and learn to swim. And then I also just thought, there's a really unique opportunity here for OT to be really mixed with learn to swim, because a lot of the clients I work with can't just jump right into learning. They might warm up. Their muscles are having spasticity issues that day, or say they had a really bad day at school and their sensory system is super dysregulated. They need to do like all these OT activities before they can even be in like a learning zone. So I thought it was a really unique opportunity to put in aqua therapy, which is more of like a traditional outpatient thing, as well as my credentialing from Red Cross and learn to swim. So they get a little bit of both, and they get to customize what they want. So some people are like, you know what, I don't need to learn to swim. I just want to do this. Just want to do aquatic therapy for strength, coordination, regulation, whatever it may be. And then some people are like, you know what, I also want to learn to swim, but I also need this other stuff too. So then we'll mix them together.
Yes. So I totally see how the two are related, aquatherapy and occupational therapy. I'm curious about what brought you to OT. So it sounds like you were already doing aquatherapy types of things even before. And then you became an OT. So what was the bridge there?
So I actually did respite, and it was a little bit above respite. I can't remember the exact name for it in Michigan, where you helped people achieve their goals underneath different waivers they had for an adult that had disabilities. And I worked with him through college, and sometimes his parents would want to go out like overnight. So I would stay overnight at his house to take care of him because he had a stroke. So he needs help with like all of his meals and his mobility. So it's kind of doing some pre-OT kind of work, but more like caregiver work. And she was like, you know what, you're really, because I kind of helped, he makes things with art because he can't speak, so that he runs his own little business as well. So I kind of helped him manage some stuff. And his mom said, all these things that you're coming up with for my son, which I love because you're working for us, you really should consider OT. And I had never even heard about it. So
wow.
Yes. So Cindy, if you hear this, we're talking about you right now. She was like, you should really look into OT. And then I looked into it and I said, oh my gosh, like this kind of seems like it's a good fit for me. Like I'm going to get a stable job in healthcare, and I know I'm going to have a place to work, and I'm also going to be able to be creative and do things together. So I actually jumped into grad school and a combined program. So I came out like a year early.
Fantastic. Oh, what amazing. What an amazing story.
A family figured out that they had already had OT. So they were like, you know what? You kind of seem like you'd be an OT. And they were right.
Incredible. Well, it's so nice to hear that part. Would you be able to describe for us a little bit your path to your current business? Now you have a thriving private practice. But I'm sure it took some steps and some time to get there.
Yeah.
You now shared with us how you went through OT school, sort of what what the bridge was between aquatherapy and occupational therapy. Now, can you tell us how you got from occupational therapy school to today?
Yeah, so I have a little bit of like overlap kind of when we talked about from the beginning, just a tad, but then you'll have like the rest of that answer, I guess. So when I moved here in December of 2018, I started in pediatric home health solely. And I was really restrictive about what schedule I wanted. I only wanted to work Monday through Thursday, and I was putting my foot down about it because I had worked 3 jobs through grad school and I was tired. I was burnt out. I don't think I could do any more. So I said, you know what? I'll do 410s, but I'm not working on Fridays. So home health Peds was the first job to offer me that kind of flexibility and schedule as an employment. So I came in as an employee to Colorado, worked for about 2 years. I kind of realized that underneath like employment as home health, which doesn't work for everybody. It didn't work for me, but it works for some people really well. I really wanted to use my Colorado scope of practice in its entirety. So there's so much things that OTs can address. I mean, we can address all those daily occupations. There's so many occupations you would do in one singular day. And I wanted to be able to do all of that. And underneath employee status, they said, well, maybe not because we want this or that. And I said, well, I guess I'll do it myself then. So I switched to an LLC and independently contracted those home health. So then basically now they don't really monitor my practice. They just give me a cut of the billing and then I can move on. So I get to really govern the quality of the care I provide, which I absolutely love, and really be customized for the families. So I was independently contracting, and then I kind of told a little bit about how I had families keep asking. So then I reopened Aquatics in 2021. I had already been doing some teaching on the side here and there when I first moved to Colorado, and when I was a student, I had a rotation here. So I was working at a pool that I already had a relationship with. So I had a contract with them as a business owner now, just like, hey, they said you pay me this much per hour, you can use the space at the pool. And I say, okay, great. So then I basically pay rental fee to operate out of that facility. And as that grew and I had more requests from north of Denver, I had lived in Inglewood at the time. And so I would go to the local rec center really close to my house. So they knew me as just like a personal consumer of the rec center. So then I thought, maybe I can get a second location. So they already knew me. So I tried to like work my way up the aquatic director chain until I said, hey, I have this other rental at this pool, but some of my clients aren't really located this far south. Are you okay if maybe I do it here? And they have no disability swimming program. So they were like, absolutely, like you're not in competition with anybody and we don't really want to start one. So we'll just refer those people to you. And then when they kind of graduate from you, you can refer them back to us for regular swim lessons or group lessons or things like that. So that's kind of how I've got like the 2 locations that I work with in the area. And Aquatics has just kind of grown since then. I've negotiated a licensing agreement with Red Cross. So I'm a mobile licensed provider with Red Cross as my own facility. So as a teacher underneath my business, because I work for my business, I can submit my teaching course records to Red Cross to keep my license active. So now soon, when I go to my formal training in Utah at the first week of December, I'll be able to license other clinicians for water safety instructor when I come back. So then they can submit their course records under me and they can work for me. And I already have the 2 facilities ready to go. So Aqua's just here and there and all over. At the same time, I've also done a lot of free disability swimming events in my area where I rent out the rec center. I run free raffles of equipment not commonly covered underneath Medicaid or things families just want. And they don't want to wait 6 months for, and I had another family donate it or whatever it may be. I just raffle it off. They register for free for the event. Each family gets 2 raffle tickets and they just win stuff. So that's pretty good. We usually give away between like $1,500 and $2,000 per event of free stuff.
Amazing.
Families so I love that.
Where do you get all of these prizes?
So
incentives.
That's kind of where I work with other businesses. So I find other small businesses or even big businesses that want to sponsor me. So we kind of make a little agreement, like you buy so much off the Amazon raffle list, that gets you this much marketing for so much time on my Instagram or my website or some shout outs or a booth at the event, like a 10 by 10 tent or something if we do an outdoor event or things of that nature. And so that's kind of how I get it. They're kind of like sponsored items. And then those people
Yes.
get a little bit of advertisement in exchange for doing that. So, which is great.
Amazing. Well, thanks so much for sharing with us such great detail. It sounds like you've done a ton of networking, right? First, kind of reaching out to rec centers, number one. Amazing that you were able to connect with two, where you're able to kind of continue to have your practice take place in those centers.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I've found more aquatic people as I make more connections. So then I got another certification through Aquatic Rehab and Therapy Institute. So now I have an extra aquatic rehab certification on top of like being an OT, and they have conferences throughout the year and regional all over the US. And then they have an international one every 2 years. So kind of get to learn from OTs like across the world, and PTs and RTs and all sorts of different interdisciplinary folks.
Yes. And you also talked about participating in community events, having booths, and really being out there to talk to the community.
Yeah. And it's not even for the purpose of like making money or getting more referrals. I really just want people to like break down the barriers that come with the pool. There are so many people that don't come to the pool because they can't get a caregiver, or they have a caregiver, but they can't afford to pay for their caregiver. So my events are free. You bring as many caregivers as you want. I only start capping it when we start getting a little full for the pool's capacity. Then I'm like, okay, you have to cut it off. You have to get in line for the next one. But they can bring as many family members as they want, or if they have many kids. So it just depends. Like, and they can't afford all that. They get to come to these free events. They get to win free stuff. And more recently, I started also including small business like craftsmen in the area. So the parents sometimes can like go shopping. Like, I just think that there's just not a lot of opportunity. Like when parents have a child with a disability and maybe they're having a meltdown, screaming or whatever, most people feel embarrassed when like they're in Target. Like at our events, who cares? They're screaming, who cares? Like, do you want to go shopping? Like every parent is here. All the vendors know. Everyone knows this is the kind of event we're having. And it's just like a very inclusive, welcoming environment. So I am super excited. And we have a huge one next year that just got approved. Like right before I was coming in for this podcast yesterday, for working with our local police department and fire department to have an outdoor splash and play event at the police department next year. And it's going to have like blow up slides, splash pads. We're going to do like probably some face paint, maybe a dunk tank, some food trucks. And so that one's going to be really fun because it'll be a great resource fair. It'll also be a great event that's going to be inclusive and free for families. And then I'm going to have a small little fundraiser on the side, and I'll just recycle all that money into future events. So don't really keep it. I either donate 50% of what we make off of the events and to a nonprofit, and then I recycle the other 50. Or if I choose to keep it, I just recycle it into future events, or I buy raffle items myself or whatever.
I absolutely love what you're doing. I heard you say earlier on in our conversation that, this is not something that's very common in your area. And in fact, both of these rec centers that you approach were like, oh yeah, we don't have anything like that. So can you tell us, and can you talk a little bit more about that? And, why do you think that might be the case?
I'm not sure if it's because maybe we're a landlocked state. There's no big water bodies around us, so people aren't growing up swimming. I'm not sure, but it's just not common around here. There are some aquatic therapists and there are some adaptive swim programs, but they're always separate. Or if they're underneath the same company, no provider provides both of those services at the same time. I've researched before I considered even opening it. I tried to be like, can I refer to somebody? Because these people need this service, and I couldn't find anybody. So so far, and maybe someone in this podcast will hear and be like, hey, me too. But as of right now, I haven't found any other dual service practitioners like myself who do the aquatic therapy and the water safety, learn to swim, drowning prevention in the same service, not like move over to the next person in the exact same service at the exact same time.
Hopefully that OT out there is listening and will be in touch.
Maybe they're like, yeah, I do. I also do drowning prevention. Maybe we can collab. That would be fun. As business owners, it's always fun to meet other business owners. I know some other aquatic OTs, but they don't do any learn to swim like in the area. So I know a few of them, and I helped one kind of just get started so that she could have someone. I sent a referral over there to her. So she's gotten some people, and I think her business is going good now too. But she's more north of me in the state. Colorado is not as big as California, but a decent size.
Now, is that something that you can then begin to start doing, is training OTs to become learn to swim trainers?
Yes. Yeah. So in December, I go to Utah for a week at the Water Safety Instructor Trainer Academy with Red Cross. It's very long. Academy for a week actually in Utah. And then I'll be credentialed to train other people for WSI, which is the Water Safety Instructor certification. So then they will be like able to teach people. And if they, continue to work with me or they work for me, they can submit their course records underneath my mobile organization to keep their license active. So it'd be like a way that they can get more credentialing and just like further their practice and specialties. The other piece that I'm pretty excited about is I'm hoping by the beginning of next year, I'll be maybe done writing my own breath training curriculum I've made for people with aspiration risks and non-talkative folks and children or babies that want a more gradual approach. They do have infant swim and rescue, which is the one that you've seen with the babies flipping over on their backs. And I'm sure you've seen some people who have medical fragility or disabilities don't qualify for their program. So what happens to those people? They're basically displaced and they're like, this isn't on the table for you. So I'm here to tell those people that it's on the table for you and that you don't have to be completely like discarded. You don't have to take swimming off the list because someone said so. So I just want to give like that accessibility back to those people in that population.
I love that. Now, as we're talking about, sort of the details, is there a difference between aquatic therapy and adaptive swimming?
I think there's a ton of overlap. I bet people would argue that I think they are different because, OT, we go to school, we pass NBCOT, we are a healthcare profession. So there is a much like higher skill set there that you've achieved and that you've paid a lot of money for education to get. So I think there is a difference. While I think they could be combined is a very like great avenue there. So learn to swim or adaptive swimming is going to be just kind of using maybe adaptive teaching strategies, giving people more time, things of that nature to achieve swimming skills. But the goal is like swimming.
Yes.
So I would say like aquatic therapy, the goal might not be swimming. It might be, there might be some overlap, but maybe the goal in aquatic therapy is, I really just want my cardiovascular health to be better. I need to work on stretching my arms because I'm in a very like poor spasticity flexion pattern. A lot of people with CP have that. Or maybe they have trouble regulating their sensory systems. The water is really great for proprioceptive input. So maybe the goal is sensory regulation. I have a couple people that the goal is to decrease pain. So the water is an avenue for pain. I have some people that can only ambulate or walk. For those who aren't OTs listening to the podcast, they can't walk on land, but they can walk in the water. So talk about some like freedom of movement and an occupation basically giving back a lost function that they can't do on land anymore. So the goal doesn't have to be learn to swim in aquatic therapy. The goal can be anything related to OT, which would be those daily occupations. So balance, coordination, comfort in the water, sensory regulation, decreasing pain, increasing range of motion. I mean, play skills. There's so many things that you can do under aquatic OT.
So thanks for making that distinction. It's super important. I absolutely, very clear to me now. This might be a really good time to segue into what a typical day might look like for you. Would you be able to describe for us a little bit about that, or maybe a typical session and some goals that you work on?
So I'll just pick one that's like a little easier so that the concept just is more understanding. So one that maybe isn't as medically fragile because those ones get way complex way fast. So I have a 17-year-old that I work with, and her typical session is about 45 minutes. So when she gets in the water, she doesn't talk. She does a little bit of signing. She usually likes to walk in the current channel, which pushes the water around. So and we do that for about 15 minutes. So she has a goal to work out and increase her heart rate for 15 minutes. So while she's walking, I mean, she's actually kind of faster than me. I have to run. She gets really excited about this. So I'm trying to encourage her to basically go as fast as she can go so I can, get her heart rate up and give her a little bit of a cardio challenge, but it's like a really good warm-up activity. So after that, I usually ask her if she wants to do extremity floats because it gives her extra proprioceptive sensory input to her joints. Extremity floats they're like floaty cuffs that go on your wrists and ankles like bracelets or anklets.
Yeah.
And so the resistance comes when they go under the water. So they're not heavy above the water. When you put them underneath, they want to float up. So you have to use strength to keep them down. So this can be really good because it gives her extra proprioceptive input. So if I can get enough sensory and enough cardio into her beginning, then I can hopefully get her directed onto like a harder goal. Because if I don't do those pre-activities that are needed, then she'll be like doing whatever she wants or all over the place or refusing, like saying no all the time and won't do any activities with me if she doesn't get to do like her routine first, which is totally fine. Everybody loves their routines, right? So
yes,
if she says yes for the extremity floats, because I don't just like strap things on people without their permission, then we put them on. So if everything, we're going to assume she says yes for this typical day. She doesn't always say yes.
Because it makes it more challenging, correct?
Right. Yeah. So some days she might not be. So it just depends. So then after she's kind of done that and she's pretty regulated, I try to see if I can get her on her tummy and holding my hands and her feet off of the floor because her mom would love if she could ever do any sort of swim skill at all. So she's aquatic therapy, but I have kind of goals that she'll try some of these things just to see if we can even get at it. She doesn't go underwater. She doesn't have those kind of skills. So at this time, I hope for them. So I ask her to do kind of her front floats, and then I ask her to see if she can kick her feet. And so sometimes I get some of those and sometimes I don't. I also have some back floaties that I love for her to get on if I can. They have one that's called a neck doodle. It's actually my favorite. That's actually the name of the product. I don't have any affiliation with them, but I just love them because it doesn't block the front of your neck. There's a lot of neck colors for swimming with disabilities that like close. Cuff is not my favorite. I just find that I wouldn't want my airway kind of pushed on. So I don't think my folks would want it either. So this one's kind of like an airplane neck pillow is what it looks like. And then they lay down and they can float on their back. And sometimes she'll kick for me. So that can be kind of nice. Then I have other things after that in the 45 minutes where she'll work on like simultaneously moving her arms at the same time. So we get a little bit of that motor planning in there on the OT side. And then it's a benefit because if she gets it right, she's going to produce a forward movement, which is what we want for swimming. So it kind of, there's a dual one that they're like pretty hard to take apart. Like one, it's swimming and it's gross motor because it's like a double-handed outward movement that I try to get her to do 10 in a row. And then after that, she's kind of really good at like her internal clock. She kind of knows when it's 45 minutes and she'll just be like, she'll sign all done and then she'll walk to the exit of the river and then wait for me to unhook the little buoy and then she'll pop out and go sit by her dad. So that's kind of what our 45 minutes. She gets a little bit of exercise. She gets a little bit of suspension on her front, on her back, experiencing different positions. I try to get a little bit of forward progressional movement and gross motor control, and then she's out. A lot of the stuff that she works on is, she has another goal that's for fall risk too, because she's fallen before. And she's 17, she's fallen with like bruises on her shins and stuff before. So I'm hoping that, because you can't get her to do it on land, like do 1 foot at a time, but in the water I can, because the water gives her a little bit of support. And when she wants to take the extremity floats off her feet, I was like, you do it. So then she has to try to figure it out and lift her foot up and all sorts of stuff. So I get to sneak in the sprinkle of the OT in there as well.
A little core stuff.
Yes.
Now, you said something about a river.
Yeah.
So can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so the one facility I work out of in Littleton, they have 3 pools in their facility. It's huge. It's a giant pool facility. So there's a lap pool that's colder for athletes. Then there's a family pool that has a current channel or river where the water like pushes you. So I'm sure you've been like a lazy river for swimming before. I'm sure everybody might be familiar with that. So it's just like that. And then there's a therapy pool at that place too that's kept at a warmer temperature. So I switch pools depending on it. I like having her session in the current channel. She actually used to be in the therapy pool when I first started with her, but she's starting to get good and I wanted to keep her moving. So when I put her in the current channel, it encourages her to walk naturally without anybody pushing her. The water pushes you naturally. So it encourages her to keep walking and keep moving. So if you have someone that's maybe like has trouble following directions, or she might not understand what I'm asking her to do, the environment is already saying, hey, walk. So she has to naturally walk automatically. She doesn't have to. If she stops, she's going to get a decent resistant activity because the water is going to push against her. But it's kind of a natural way I can get her to work on more things because it keeps her moving forward.
What an amazing facility this place is for you to be able to have, options on where you can take your patients or your clients.
Right? Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. And thanks so much for describing for us, a typical session. I'd love to be a fly on the pool, just to kind of be there and observe you doing all this stuff.
Right.
Amazing. So how long do you typically work with your clients? I know that your sessions are typically 45 minutes, but how many sessions does it usually take?
So I would I'm usually 45 to 60. I try to stay, I would love if people staying with me for an hour, but some people just aren't up for it. So then they can choose to have a shorter session. Like that 17-year-old I was telling you about. And then some people work with me. It really depends. So pediatric Medicaid in the state of Colorado is pretty forgiving. They're allowed to get a lot of services. So they might stay with me for a few years until Medicaid kind of makes them take a break. A couple people might stay with me if they're coming for maybe something that is like a short-term orthopedic injury, like a rotator cuff injury or something. They might come see me for 12 to 16 weeks just for some rehabilitation exercises in the water. And then I give them a program and then they're on their way. That would be more for a older teen or maybe even a young adult, maybe mid-adult, because I don't work with geriatrics. So it would be like that under that age.
Yes. I love hearing that, it potentially, or first, in some cases, you're actually able to work with them for a couple of years.
Yeah,
assuming that it takes a minute to get these kids to start to feel comfortable being around you, right?
Yeah.
Trusting you, floating in water.
Absolutely. That's a really big piece that I think that's where I think OT flows into the adaptive swim a little bit, because someone might be paying for swim lessons, regular swim lessons out of pocket, but they might not be able to afford 2 years of swim lessons to get 3 skills.
Yes.
But that's kind of where OT needs to come in. There needs to be not just an adaptive teaching strategy. There needs to be some serious breakdown of skills so that we can figure out what's going on and why they're not able to get this skill. Sometimes people have gone to regular swim lessons and then they come to me and they're like, it's not working. We're not getting it. We're not doing anything correctly. And then I will learn, that they have epilepsy or something like that. And that is a very big piece, but it's nuanced in the adaptive swimming zone. But in the OT zone, it's wow, that's a big piece. If you had a seizure 2 days ago, of course you don't remember your swimming from last week. Your brain is having some post-ictal activity, and it's going to take a while to get those skills back, or maybe you lost those depending on how catastrophic the seizure was, and then they needed to start over. So that is where insert OT to figure out what those pieces are missing, and then we can kind of replace them. So it just depends. So some people might see me more short term if their goal is to just learn to swim functionally, or I've had one young adult man, and his goal was he really wanted to be able to jump off the diving board. That was just his one thing. He's I just want to be able to do that. And so once he's possessed enough skills to do that, then he's kind of I'm outie. I'm good. Just go live my life. I don't need OT anymore. And I'm that's right. That's what you wanted to do, right? I'll see you later. So I work with one woman that's in her 50s has some blindness, and she wants to be able to swim one length of the pool. So, but she needs a lot of adaptive strategies so that she doesn't have a concussion or things by running into the wall. So she actually found me because she said she searched for a bunch of adaptive swim instructors, but nobody said they could like quote unquote handle her. Not my preferred language, but that's the way she described it. So I was like, yeah, well, you're welcome here. Let's figure it out. So, and she'll probably be done with me in a couple months because she's almost learned everything she needs to.
Oh, amazing. It sounds like your OT lens really lends itself very well for this role. And you've already mentioned a couple of OT skills, like just even being more, in tune with the client's needs, right? Sensory needs, physical needs, emotional needs. That's really helping.
Absolutely.
Can you think, or can you identify any other OT skills that really come in very handy for you in this role?
So I would say not just the breakdown of occupations, but there's a section in our practice framework about the approaches you use to work with somebody, whether you adapt, habilitate, like give a new skill, rehabilitate. And so I think that through the OT lens again, and the intervention strategies that we can use underneath our practice framework, I'm also approaching things differently in general of like what they want to work on. Are they learning a new skill? Like, is the occupation of swimming, is that something they want to learn? Or they're not interested in that and they're really working on learning the new skill of walking. I even have a young toddler that I'm teaching to walk in the water for the first time because they're not walking on land yet and you're heavy on land. So in water, you can learn to walk faster. So he's walking in the pool now on underwater steps. So he's actually doing that. And then he started taking some of his first steps on land with his grandparents 2 weeks ago. So some of these things can be great because we can speed up development. And that would be an example of something that's teaching new, like a habilitative kind of thing, brand new. Rehab would be that example of a cuff injury or treating secondary problems that come with major disabilities, maybe soreness from seizures or soreness from spasticity, just maybe nerve pain, things like that. And then accommodating too. Some people need to work in the water, but they never want to learn to swim, but they want to be able to float around with their caregiver. Then we need to figure out what pieces of equipment that we can see that they can get, that we can get covered. So sometimes people in Colorado might be funded under a waiver, or I can get nonprofits to sponsor equipment, things like that. So families can move on and just be able to have some family time together, kind of maybe without therapy. So maybe adapting or learning new or rehabbing old. I would say the approaches too that I would look at through OT.
Love it. Thanks for those examples. It's so rich. And again, for listeners, being able to understand how it really is applied in your practice. Amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So can you now share with us a little bit about money matters? We're going to switch gears a little bit. Yeah, anything you think you'd like to share? How do your services get funded?
So my services get funded through a couple different avenues. So I get funded through outpatient Medicaid if it's the correct fit. So we have to use our OT lens again and say, can this person be billed for therapy? Is it appropriate? Now, if they can walk, talk, run, they don't experience very many sensory deficits, and they just want to learn to swim, well, they might be better fit underneath a private pay aquatic therapy program, not billed underneath Medicaid. We have to be able to justify that as a medical argument. So if we can, we do outpatient Medicaid. If not, there's buckets of funding in the state of Colorado for water safety instruction underneath different Medicaid waivers. So you're not billing Medicaid, but it specifically says water safety. And hello, I am a water safety instructor, so we can use that category of funding underneath Medicaid waivers. I also take some nonprofit funding. So there's other pockets of funding for low income families and things like that underneath the same community centered boards, CCBs is what they're called out here, that fund the waivers. There's also other pockets in different counties of extra leftover money that families can use if they're low income or need extra things due to extraordinary needs of things of that nature. And then I'm also partnered with a couple nonprofits who have sports or recreation based money that they can use every so many years. And so you have to wait on a little wait list, because you're part of the community. And then when you get to the top, then you can apply and then they'll pay me out and then they get a certain amount of paid services through there. and private pay. So that's kind of,
Got it.
so nonprofit pockets, Medicaid waivers, Medicaid outpatient, and private pay.
You have such a variety of funding sources. Amazing.
Yeah, I tried my best to really make my services affordable, but also just like within reach for like as many people as I could.
Yeah, making them accessible. Now, how did you find out about all of these funding sources?
Um, just like over time, just like weaving into stuff, I guess. So I would say on the Medicaid side, to become a solo provider billing Medicaid outpatient, my application took me 5 tries. And on the 6th try, I finally got approved. So that was about a year. So taking Medicaid is to start. Doing the application process is not for the faint-hearted. Once you get the hang of it, it becomes easy. But to get started, you need to persevere through that. Because they don't always give you the answers either. You'll call the provider line and say, hey, I need help with this. They'll tell you one thing you did wrong, and then they'll tell you to send it back. And then you send it back and they'll say, no, you did all these other things wrong, but they'll only give you the answer for like one thing at a time. That one I just kind of learned about as I just heard about people. Well, I know like in private practice, you can take insurance. So that was like, I just kind of Googled stuff until I figured out how to do it. And the state of Colorado has a whole provider webpage. So you can figure out how to become a provider and what you need and insurance and all that stuff, all like the back end mechanics of owning a business. And then the waivers I found out kind of over time. And then as I learned about the waivers in home health, when I would advocate for a patient to get on a waiver because they need additional services, then when I was looking through all the services they could provide, I saw like water safety was on there as a category. And so I was already providing those services private pay or outpatient. I was like, hey, I should be able to do this too. So then I have weaved my way into those as well. And the other pockets I learned about after case management was like, oh, they use this pocket already, but they actually have this extra pocket. And I was like, oh, what's that called? And then, so then I started just, more Googling of different pockets of state funding. And then the one nonprofit that I work with out here, I'm an agency partner of them. Any business can be. It's called A Precious Child, but they do low income families for like recreation and other funding, like arts and stuff like that. So that one I just happened to hear about them as a nonprofit. And I was like, how do I get on this list? So then when I started my business in 2020, I basically applied to be an agency partner. And now I just keep it maintained all the time so I can send referrals to them.
Fantastic. I am in awe of you. And
Well,
I'm just so impressed with you. You are such a, we talked earlier also about not many OTs really being in this expertise or working in this area.
Yeah.
You're such a resource to other OTs out there who may be thinking about going towards this path. You've got it figured out, and from the sounds of it, it sounds like there's funding, right?
Yep.
It sounds like there's a giant need for it.
Yes, I have a wait list
in Colorado. Right? I'm sure in other parts of the country would be the same thing. So I'm really, really hoping that you'll connect with other OTs through this platform, just so that you can build some kind of community of practice. Sounds like this is a really viable private practice for many OTs out there who are interested in this.
I think it definitely is. And I think the funding will differ based upon the state. So you would really have to look at your state requirements. Colorado is very giving for some of these programs. Now, there is a lot of hoop jumping for some of these things, or you have to fill it out just the right way, or some of the waivers make you use very specific wording. And if you don't use the wording correctly, they send it back. So there is some hoop jumping and some red tape to get through, but I would say that it is like, if you can get it operated, it's there. You just have to advocate and get it operated. And I do both of those, advocate a lot.
Shared so much, a wealth of information. But if you can think of any other career advice for any OT practitioners out there who are interested in going into aquatic therapy, what would it be?
So I would say aquatic therapy, especially because you probably can't afford a pool on your own, the relationships with the facilities you work with is huge. So Getting your foot in the door for some facilities can be quite challenging. There's still some facilities in some areas that refuse to let me come in because they'll say they have adaptive programming and that they do what I do, but they don't have any OTs on staff. So then I'm like, you don't do what I do. But sometimes you can't argue your way out of that, and you just have to move on and find another facility that has a pool and talk to them first, and then maybe those other facilities will come around one day. So I would just say that relationship is big. So like, what can you offer them? What can they offer you? Like I said, I pay a rental rate at the facilities that I work at. So they make money off of me renting space. So that could be like, hey, you got a low period that nobody comes to the rec center like every week, then can I have 3 hours during that time or something like that? So you can have some negotiation. And now that I'll have that teacher training, like some of those facilities are kind of interested in me certifying some of their staff just for general swim lessons. And I said, yeah, sure, I can certify them. You know, maybe we come to an agreement where you knock off a few bucks here and there of my bill and I'll do the class for free.
Fantastic.
That, and then I would also say when you own a business, this isn't maybe aquatic specific, but if you wanted to own any sort of OT business, that you need to figure out your boundaries and how things like work for you. So I really, which I tell people this all the time, I really love the book Off Balance by Matthew Kelly. And it is, I was actually really offended by this guy the whole time I was reading this book until like maybe like over halfway. And I was like, okay, he makes sense. Like stop arguing with him. And he basically just says, once you start owning your own business, or he doesn't even talk about necessarily owning your own business, but he said you should measure work via personal and professional satisfaction, not by like the 9 to 5 clock. And so I actually find that really valuable as a business owner, because what I was first doing when I started was like pitting my work and my personal life against each other. Like if I don't clock out at 5 o'clock, then I'm giving more time to work than I am my personal life. And basically I was creating all this unwarranted stress for myself because I'm like, they're fighting each other. Like they're not equal. They have to be balanced. So instead of being like, everything needs to be balanced, so things can be off balance. Like I might spend all day doing something for work, but maybe I spend like the next day, not even equal time, but like doing something with my husband for a few hours. And then we know both like the professional satisfaction is good, the personal satisfaction is good. So that's good. So we don't need to measure in chronological time anymore. So setting those boundaries of what works best for you is really important, because the business is like a baby. It will die if you don't put time into it, if you don't feed it, if you don't take care of it, it will go away. So you have to put a lot of time into it. So you have to really make sure that your boundaries are set up so that you can facilitate that long term without, yourself collapsing.
Thank you. Such great advice.
Yeah.
Can you share with us now a common myth or misconception perhaps about your role in aquatherapy?
So I would say aquatherapy is so much more complex than just learning to swim and adaptive swimming. I do sometimes get pushed in this category of just being a swim teacher. I'm like, no, I went to school, I'm an OT, I do this. So I can work on swimming, but there is a big distinction in the fact that I am a healthcare provider and I can also do all these other things. And then I also hopefully want like other aqua therapists to hear that swimming is an occupation, so we can work on it. Like it's in our scope of practice. And so I think that there currently is like a missed opportunity in the field of aqua OT where we could be doing breath training, and it not only helps with learning to swim and going underwater, it could help with eating, talking, just having volitional control of your own body. A lot of our clients don't get to make a lot of their choices in their life. They're like, do you want the blue shirt or the red shirt? Not to go to my closet and pick out whatever I want. Or do you want to go to this therapy or that therapy tomorrow? It's not, but if you can control your breathing, you can control your body. And a lot of people I work with don't have that opportunity. So I think that some of that, like breath training, should be in OT and should be in aquatic therapy. I think that's a myth. And we kind of talked about some of those a little bit throughout here and there too, but for sure.
Well, thank you so much, Holly, for everything you've shared so far. Again, I believe that you're just a wealth of information and an amazing resource for any OT practitioners out there who really want to get into aquatherapy. So thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and experiences with us.
Thanks for having me.
If any of our listeners wanted to get in touch to pick your brain, just connect with you, is it okay if they do so?
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely.
What would be the best way for them to reach out to you?
I think the easiest way is to search through my website because all the hyperlinks are connected through my website. So my website is www.CANOE, like the boat, canoecommunity.org. And then once you're on my website, my Instagram little symbol is up on the top and my Facebook symbol is up at the top. If Instagram, it connects to my phone much better than Facebook. So if people want to ask me questions, DMing me through the CANOE.community Instagram is super easy for me to find and reach and answer questions. And then from there, if like they can, have my business line and email, and then they can be a little more accessible if I'm not on social media that day or something like that.
Amazing. And I know you also said that, well, first of all, thank you for making yourself available to our listeners. Again, I think you're a wealth of resource. And you mentioned earlier that you were hiring?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I actually
Is that something you want to mention?
Yeah. I actually just onboarded someone before this podcast. So I have one part-time person, officially another clinician besides myself. I already have some non-clinical staff that help me with billing, like my husband and stuff. But now it's great to have another clinician. So part-time, I'm hiring part-time clinicians that want to do some work. I currently can't. My waitlist can't support a full-time caseload at this time. But I assume once that waitlist is empty and I stop posting on all my media that I'm full, that I'll get more referrals like coming in like really a lot. Right now everything's on there, it says no room, so that people stop, sending me requests. So yeah, definitely hiring part-time OTs right now too. And my group Medicaid application is also through, so people I can accept insurance for Medicaid for other clinicians now too. So not just myself.
Oh, incredible. So now you have a wait list. Now you've been able to hire some help, right?
Yes.
Help with that wait list.
Oh yeah, it's going to take a couple people off, but there's still more on there.
Oh gosh, I just congratulate you so much on your growth and on your success so far. And again, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us. I have no doubt that OT practitioners are going to be in touch.
Yeah, absolutely. Or if they want too, I usually write this for families and parents, but I write a free blog on my website too, that I do like educational topics for parents. But if there's an OT practitioner that's like, hey, can you tell me a little bit more about this topic in OT practice? I'll just put it on my blog. It's a free blog. It's on my website. Just like more information for people to find and have access to. So they can put in a request for that too. But they can even DM me on Instagram. Hey, can you write a blog article about this topic in OT and something like that? And then I just put a little like snippets of education here and there. It's nice to get information from like a reputable healthcare provider rather than just like Googling and going down the Google hole.
And it really, it sounds to me like you're really the subject matter expert in this subject.
I try. I do my CEUs like everybody else, and I go to learn more all the time too. So we're all constantly learning. So it's a lifelong process.
Oh, well, thanks again so much, Holly, for your time and again for sharing your experiences with us. I can't wait to hear what's next for you.
Thank you. Thanks for finding me. This is fun.
And that wraps up another inspiring episode of the Uncommon OT series. Connect with me at www.transitionsot.com. And don't forget to sign up to be part of the Transitions OT community. By doing so, you'll receive my latest compiled list of uncommon OT practice settings, the latest news on mentoring offerings, uncommon OT live events, non-traditional OT resources, and more. You may also follow me on my social media pages on Instagram and LinkedIn. And if you love this episode, head on over to Spotify, Stitcher, Apple, and Google Podcasts to follow, rate, and leave a review. I also ask you to consider pledging your support to my Passion Podcast project by being a patron on Patreon. It is very much appreciated. Sending big OT love. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.